Hello everyone, and welcome back to eCabinets Tips and Tricks. This is the first video in the series of how to make a raised panel trunk in eCabinets. And today we're going to be working on a couple of objectives. The first of which is to get the trunk laid out. And for that I'll be using Sketchup to lay out all the details of how we want the trunk to be built. And I'll use SketchUp for stuff like this just to help get my head around how I want things done and make it a lot easier to refer to whenever I'm working on these stretchers and what have you in eCabinets. After we get the trunk laid out, then we'll be going into eCabinets and modifying this cabinet here. This is a standard cabinet from eCabinets Standard Library. It's a frameless base, one opening. So, with that being said, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is go into SketchUp, and as you can see here, I have a blank work area. When you open SketchUp, a lot of times you'll see a screen something like this maybe, but we're going to be working in 2D here and not 3D. So I want to go into camera here, go standard views, and top. I want to look directly down on the top of my work area here, just like if I was using a piece of graph paper or something. First thing I want to do is maybe create some layers, and I've already created some here. If you're not familiar with SketchUp and layers, what layers do in SketchUp is allow you to, it's a visual thing, unlike a lot of other CAD programs. So I mean, what it does is it allows you to turn different layers on and off, and I'll be demonstrating that here shortly, but I've already made some layers here. I've got my mid style front, top rail front, left right style in, bottom rail front, top, base molding, deck, mid style left in, and left right style front. So let's get started on this thing. I'm going to use my tape measure tool here to create some construction guides. As you can see, it will snap automatically on the green, red, and blue axis if we were rotated properly there. I'm going to start on the green axis here, and I want to go in the red direction 36 inches because I want my cabinet or my trunk to be 36 inches, not counting the base molding and the top. And I just got that guide started by moving it out and bringing it back and hitting enter. Let's do the same thing on the red axis. So I'm going to just go down and go back to where it says 0 and left click and or hit enter, and now I have my left, right, bottom construction guide. So now I want to go up, and I want my trunk 20 inches high including the top. So now I'm going to take the information that I know I want. I know that I want a 3/4 inch top, so I'm going to move it down in the green direction and type in 3/4 and hit enter. So there's my 3/4 inch top. Let me go ahead and draw that. I'm going to use my rectangle tool. Click on that corner and that corner. Zoom in here where we can see better. Now, I need to make that a group. You could make it a component, but I want to make it a group. So I'm going to double click and make sure that all the lines and the face there is selected. I'm going to right click and make group. Now I can come to my entity info here. Now if you don't see these, and you probably won't, you can bring them up by going to Window and checking or unchecking entity info, layers. So if I turn these off here and I go to Window and I check entity info, there's my entity info, and layers, there's my layers. Now you can dock these, you can have your layers on the bottom or entity info on the bottom, and once they're docked they'll move around. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this group right down here is where you name it, and I'm going to name it top, and I'm going to put that on my top layer. Now if I needed to, I could turn this top on and off by checking or unchecking visible here. As you'll see, that will become very useful. So let's figure out exactly what we need to do next. We need to know how high we want our base molding. So I'm going to start out with 4 inches, and I know that I want it to extend out 3/4 because I'm going to miter the corners as it wraps around. So I'm just going to come on over 3/4 and 3/4 on this side and draw a rectangle. Oh, see, it went down past here, so I'm going to go edit, undo rectangle. Make sure that you see that little intersection right there. Right click, double click, right click, make group, and name this one base molding front, and I'm going to put that on base molding layer. Now what do we have between our top and our base molding? We got 15 inches. I need to know how far down I want my carcass, so to speak, my raised panel sections here, to be past this base molding. I want to be down at least 1 inch. Okay. Probably more than that because we got to have a deck here. So maybe we should work on our deck. We want our deck down 1 inch, and it's going to be 3/4. So that's going to give us 1/4 inch past there. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and just draw the deck now. It's got to be let's see. Let's do this. This is going to be the end of our front here. I'm going to go 2 1/4. I'm going to have 2 1/4 inch rail or stiles here, and I know I'm going to have my end coming in 3/4. Okay, left and right, 2 1/4 and 3/4. Okay, so this is going to be the end here. This is going to be where our deck should go. So right here to right here will be our deck. Double click, right click, make group, name it, and put it on the deck layer. Now, let's get rid of this marker here and this marker here. Or guide, I should say. Might as well get rid of that one too. And that one. Now, I want maybe an inch below the deck just so that if I need to I can put a nailer here or maybe use some screws to help stiffen up this base. So I'm going to come down another inch, and that's going to be the bottom of my stiles here. So let's go ahead and get our left and right stile in. Double click, make that a group, name this, put it on left right stile front. Now I can just move this over. I'm going to use my move tool here. Move, click on this corner, and if I hit hit my right arrow key, which will lock it in the red direction, and control, which will allow me to copy it and move it right there. So there's our stiles. I just need to rename this to right stile front. So I got a left stile and right stile, and they're both on the same layer. Now I need my center stiles there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use these construction guides here. This one, I'm going to hold down my shift key, and this one, and I'm going to click on move, and I'm going to copy these over also. I'm going to get on this line, hit my right arrow key to lock it in the red direction, and control, and right there, and I'm going to divide that by 3 because I want 3 spaces. Now I should have evenly spaced openings here. 9, 9, and 9. Okay, now I need my bottom rail and my top rail. So I want to go from this line right here. I want to have 2 1/4 showing above my base molding there. 2 1/4. I'm going to type in 2 1/4 and hit enter, and I want 2 1/4 down from here and hit enter. Now that means that this right here is going to be 4 1/4, my bottom rail. So let's go ahead and draw that one, and don't forget to make it a group. This is bottom rail front. Bottom rail front, and I'm going to put this on my bottom rail front layer, and I'm going to create my top rail. Double click, make it a group, I'm going to put that on my top rail front layer. Now I can just simply create my mid stiles here, on my mid stiles. Make that a group. Make that a group. style front. Oop. And like I said, this is just to help keep things organized, because, like, for example, right now I can't click on that deck if I needed to, because all these are in the way. So if I needed to click on my deck, I could just simply come into base molding here and turn it off. Sorry, not base molding, my bottom rail front. Bottom rail front here, and now I can click on it. So that's where that comes in helpful. We need to do a couple more things here. I want my top to have 1.25 inch band on the left, right, and front. So I need to extend this out on the left and the right by 1/4 inch. And there's a couple of ways you could do this. If I double click on this and I'll click on this line and my move tool, I'm going to just simply start dragging it out and type 1/4, and it'll move it out 1/4. And do the same thing, move, start it out that way, and 1/4, and it moved it out 1/4. Another way is to use your scale tool here. You can click on your object that you want to scale, and you get the little nodes here. It says red scale about opposite point, so that's because it's in 2D. But if you hit Control and you just start dragging it, you got to click on it and hold down your Control key, it will move it in both directions. The only thing is that you'll probably need a guide 1/4 inch out to snap to. So if I go Alt Backspace and hit Escape, and I'll take my tape measure tool and make a guide. And click on my scale tool here and click on the red node in the center there and Control, and when it gets on the line there, just click on it and it moved both of them out 1/4 inch. So a couple different ways to do that there. Now what we need to do is to determine how far these parts need to be oversized, how much they need to be oversized, because we're going to be using a rail and style cutter to create our raised panel here. In my case it is 1/2 inch. That's how much oversized it needs to be. That's how much the cutter actually takes to groove. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for my rails and styles. Now I'm going to use my scale tool. I'm going to hold down my shift key and I'm going to select that one and that one, and I'm going to click on scale right here in the center, click on that node, hold down my Control key and snap to that line, and it moved them all at once. So I'm going to do the same thing with these two. Hold down my shift key, select both of them and scale. Control, move it over, click on it, and that is done. Pretty quick. Now, I think that is just about everything we need for the front here to get started in eCabinets. Let's come over here about 6 inches or so, and draw our left and right end outline here. So I know I want it to be 18 inches deep, so I'm going to type in 18, and I'm going to use these reference points here because it's going to be identical. Okay, let me go ahead and get our top here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to extend this out 1/4 inch. In the red direction. That's going to be the front there, 1/4 inch. The back is going to be flush because I'm going to use some trunk hinges or whatever to hinge it, or either a piano hinge or something like that. So I don't want any overhang. I'm not going to have a band on the back. Now this is our base molding here. Let me go ahead and make this a group. Top, put it on the top layer. Base molding left / right. And put it on base molding there. Now let's go ahead and get our deck in here. I believe, maybe not the deck. I think what we need first is we need the representation of this front board here. So I'm going to go 3/4, enter, and that being said, this needs to go out 3/4, so we need to go out 3/4 on it. Now I am going to wrap that band all the way around, so I'm going to go out 3/4 on each side. Control, got to hold down the control key, you can't just hit it. Okay, now this 3/4 here is representing our this left and right, left or right style here. So let me make sure I'm on this correctly. That's not right. It needs to go all the way down to the same thing as this one. So click, make that a group. I'm not necessarily going to name that, but I do want to put it on a layer in case I got to turn it off. What the heck, let's name it. And let's put it on style front there. Alright, now I want 2 1/4 inches overall. 2 1/4. Okay, and let me explain what I'm doing here. I'm going to dado these end styles into this front panel here. So I'm going to go 3/8 deep with my dado, and now I can create my left style here. make that a group. Left style end, put it on a layer. Left right style end. And I'm going to do the same thing with all of this. Okay, so I'm going to hold down my shift key, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to move it. So I'm going to move it all the way over, and now I'm going to right click and I'm going to flip along red direction, and it just moved everything over for me. So now I can move this and get it oriented where I want it, and right there. So now this is left style in. Let's rename this to right. And this one is back style. So now that's taken care of. Let me get rid of some of these here, just to help keep things from getting cluttered. And we're going to need our bottom rail and our top rail. There's our top rail, there's our bottom rail. And make group. Top rail, mid style front, top rail front, bottom rail front, mid style end, left right style front. Evidently I don't have a layer for that, unless I'm missing it. So let's make a layer. Top rail in, let's make another layer. Bottom rail. Bottom rail end. Okay, so let's put this on top rail end. And let's name this bottom rail. And put it on bottom rail end. Now, we want to go, we got to extend these out just like we did the other ones. So I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm going to come over a 1/2 inch and scale it out. Hold down my control key, come over till it snaps, and there's my 1/2 inch. Now, I think I'm probably going to want a mid rail here. So I'm going to come till it snaps to the center of this group. Right here, you can see it automatically snaps to the center. So you got 6 3/4 on each side. I'm going to come over 1/2 of 2 1/4, which is 1 1/8 inches. Type in 1 1/8 inches and enter. And enter. So 2 1/4. What the heck, let's just draw this and make it go up a 1/2 inch and 1/2. Okay, now we can just draw our mid style or mid rail here, mid style, and make that a group and name it. put it on mid style in. So I think that's everything we need to get started on drawing up our trunk and eCabinets. And as you can see, or will see, is that even though it took a little bit of time to do this, it's going to make things go a lot quicker in eCabinets. Let's see, we forgot our deck here. Let's go ahead and get our deck. This is the end of our front and back, and we want to get our construction guides here. So let's go ahead and get our deck in here. And double click. Now see, there we go. And make that a group. And let's go ahead and get it named deck. And put it on the layer deck. And delete the guides, and we're good to go, I believe, now. So what I would do, or what you probably need to do now, is go ahead and save this. Let's verify a few things first before we. Let's make sure that yes, this is going to be the front and this is going to be the back, and the deck is going to butt up to it. It's going to set in 1 inch. Okay, so it looks like we're pretty good here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, and I'm going to save this file. I'm going to call this RP Trunk Layout, and save. Now, if something happens, all we got to do is bring that file up. The next thing we need to do is go into eCabinets and start getting everything laid out. Okay, now we're in eCabinets, and I have brought up my standard frameless upper base cabinet. And to find that, you go into Standard Cabinets and Standard Base Frameless, and you just click on it, and it will load it right into the Cabinet Assembly Editor there. If you're not in Cabinet Assembly Editor, when you first open eCabinets, let's just start out from new here. You can go to Develop Cabinets or Assembly, or you can click on this icon right here, Cabinet Assembly Editor, then go into Standard Cabinets and Standard Base Cabinet, and you'll get this little dialog here. You can click on this not to show it again if you want, and bring up your standard frameless base cabinet. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to get our dimensions here. I know I want it 36 inches by 20 inches high and 18 inches deep. And I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to resize. Okay, now we need to adjust this toe kick here because we want our deck to be a certain height off the floor. So if I go back into Sketchup, we can tell quite easily how high we need our deck, or our toe kick rather. So I'm going to click on the red axis here and go up to the bottom of our deck, and it's saying 3 inches. So our toe kick needs to be 3 inches high, and then the deck sits on top of that. So let's go into construction settings, and let's go toe kick and set the height for 3, and let's go ahead and set the inset for 0 because ultimately we're going to remove that toe kick. And let's double check and make sure that we are correct here. So if I zoom in, and I click on my tape measure tool here, double click. I can measure from the bottom of my toe kick here to the bottom of my deck, and if you look in the Y direction right here, it's saying 3 inches. See, we got our Y is up, so that's correct, and that should be 3 3/4. And in SketchUp we have 3 3/4, so all that's working. Now what we need to do is we need to adjust this top here, because we want the top to extend all the way out and be on top of the cabinet. And we need to remove the left end, the right end, and the back, and also the toe kick, so we'll be left with just the top and the deck. Let's go back into construction settings, and let's set our top to be top flush on the left, top flush on the right, and top flush on the back. And click OK. Now you could go through and set everything all at one shot, but I'm just demonstrating this here, how it reacts when you do that. As you can see, it is overlaying the ends and the back. Okay. Now, if you remember in SketchUp, we had our overlays, or our top 1/4 inch out this way, 1/4 inch out that way, and 1/4 inch out on the front. So let's go ahead and adjust that. We need the front inset. Okay, we need that a negative front inset. For the simple reason it's going by inset and not overlay. Okay, so inset would be making it smaller, negative inset will be making it bigger. So we need to go minus 1/4, and we'll leave the back at 0, and the left is minus 1/4, and the right is minus 1/4. Okay, now let's see. Let's go to the toe kick here. We're going to leave all this like it is, and I'm going to uncheck has toe. And I'm going to remove the back. I'm going to uncheck has back, and uncheck has left end, and uncheck has right end. I'm going to click OK. Now as you can see, you saw that deck move. That's because we removed the ends. If I hover over it, it's saying 18 by 36, which is actually our size of our carcass, so we need to put some insets on it. Our top here is 18 1/4 by 36 1/2, so that moved correctly. Just come in here and get our deck right. We need our front inset to be minus 3/4, because we got a 3/4 front, and our back to be minus 3/4, our left to be minus 3/4. It's not minus, it's a positive inset, so we want it to actually be smaller. And 3/4 and 3/4. Remember, negative makes it bigger and positive makes it smaller. So I'm going to click OK. If you watch it, you see it made it smaller. Now we got 16 1/2, 34 1/2. Let's see if we got it right. 34 1/2 and 16 1/2, and that's good. Now we need to go into the stretcher editor and start putting in some stretchers, but before we do that, let's double check and make sure our height is correct from the top of the top to the bottom of the deck. Just to double check, the top of the top to the bottom of the deck in the Y direction is 17 inches. Let's see what we got in SketchUp here. Top of the top to the bottom of the deck is 17 inches, and that is correct. So the next thing to do would be to go into Stretcher Editor and start putting in some stretchers. Let's see, there is one more thing that I need to talk about before we go into our Stretcher Editor, and that's our material setup. If I go into Settings and Preferences, right now everything is set at 3/4 generic, which is eCabinets material that comes with the program when you download it, and it is 3/4 thick. If you plan on using another sheet stock that you set up that may be thinner, like for example the sheet stock that we use to machine on our router comes with an average thickness of around 23/32, so that's what we use. If you're laying this thing out, setting it up, especially in SketchUp here, you need to base your material thickness on what you're actually going to use. But in this case, I am basing this on the fact that everything is going to be made out of 3/4 inch solid board stock and glued up in panels and what have you. Another thing is that in eCabinets, stretchers can only be made out of sheet stock. So if you want to specify the fact that it is board stock on your cut list, you'll probably need to create a new material, and you could do that directly through here on any of these settings. You can click on Define Material, or you could come into Settings and Preferences and you can define materials there. And the sheet stock type that we need to define right now is sheet stock. And I already have a 3/4 solid stock set up right now, and it's coming with a length of 48 by 96, and this could be adjusted if you want, but there's several ways you could do this. You could create a sheet stock based on your rails and stiles. In other words, 2 1/4, 4 1/4, or whatever. You know, all those different widths, and then you can create a glue up panel stock for your deck and for your deck here and your top, and even for the panels that are going to be going in here. But right now we're going to just stick with our 3/4 solid stock, and you may want to consider doing what I just said if you're going to want to use your nesting diagrams. But if you're just going to be going off the cut list, what we have here is perfectly fine, and we'll probably be going over different options and showing how to edit and change material on this thing in future videos. But for now, if you needed to create a new sheet stock, you would just give it a name like I've got right here: 3/4 solid stock, a length, a width, a thickness, and a cost per sheet. Right now I have it set at 0. And then you'll select the image, whatever image you want. Right now I've got hard maple selected, so that's what we're going to go with. And you would just click add. Now if I were changing this, if I wanted to just make changes to it, like I want to add a cost, or I wanted to change the image or whatever, then you would just click update. If you want to remove it altogether, click delete. I'm going to keep it just like it is though, and I'm going to click OK, and you would then click OK in here. So let's go into construction settings here, and I'm going to select my 3/4 board stock. I'm going to find it here. 3/4 board stock. 3/4 That's 3.5. 3/4 solid stock for our top and our deck. 3/4 solid stock. And then our stretchers, same thing. And okay. So now you can see that that changed. Now we need to go into Stretcher Editor. So I'm going to click on my Stretcher Editor icon. Go into Stretcher Editor. And we're going to want to start adding some stretchers here. Now, we're going to be adding an up-down stretcher. So I'm going to click, I want to try to keep everything consistent. I'm going to click on my deck first, and then my top, and I'm going to click on Add Stretcher. So I need to set my stretcher width. To keep from having to change this every time, let's just click Cancel here. I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to Construction Settings, and I'm going to type in 2 1/4. And from here on out, until I change this in Construction Settings, it's always going to be set at 2 1/4. Now, let's do this again. Click on the deck, click on the top. The first one you click on is going to be your anchor point for your stretcher. And as a general rule, when we're doing this, we want our anchor point to be the same on all of them. So, I'm going to add stretcher, 2 1/4. I want an up-down stretcher, and I want it oriented from the left to the right because we're going to work on these styles here. So 3/4 solid stock, and okay, everything's a butt joint. Here's where you set your settings. And there's that one. So now I'm just going to do the same thing. I need a total of 4 of these. And add stretcher. Okay, that's 2. Now you can see you only see 1, but there's really 2 there. And add stretcher. Okay, that's 3. Add stretcher. Okay, and that's 4. Now I want to position these stretchers where I want them. So I'm going to click on one, and sometimes it won't highlight for whatever reason if you got a bunch of them in here together. So if it don't, just go ahead and click Adjust Stretcher, and it should bring this window up here. As you can see, we've got 4 insets. Inset 3, 4, 5, and 6. Inset 1 is on the bottom, top right here, and inset 2 is on the bottom. It's not showing them right now, but it will in a few minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to move this part right here to this front of this deck. So I'm going to go to Advanced, and now we have this window here. This is where it allows us to assign an association for the different components. Okay, what I'm going to do right now, inset 1 is associated to the top and the bottom of the top. Inset 2 is associated to the deck and the top of the deck. So the bottom of the top right here and the top of the deck. Now you cannot change from in other words, you can't select another component to associate these two because these are your anchor points. But you can select the top or the bottom. So inset 1 we want to be on the bottom of the top, and inset 2 we want to be on the bottom of the deck. Okay. Now inset 3, it would be tempting to go to inset 4 because this is the actually the back of the stretcher. What we want is we want the back of this stretcher to the front of this deck here. But I found out that if I try to use that, all kinds of crazy things happen. So I'm perfectly content on using inset 3. Okay, so I'm going to click on inset 3 and I'm going to click on my deck, and now it's saying it wants to be to the back of the deck. So I don't want that, I want it to the front. So inset 4 we're going to leave it alone, and inset 5 here, okay, we want it to the deck and we want it to the left side of the deck. And I'm going to click OK. Now we need to put in our dimensions here. You see this lock? This locks this dimension to whatever we had associated. So I want the inset 1 always to follow the top. So I'm going to click on lock and leave that at 0. Now right now we have inset 2 at 3/4. We want to make that to the bottom of this deck right here, plus we go back into SketchUp here to the bottom of the deck. We want to go 1 more inch down. So I'm going to click on -1 to make it go down more and lock. And as you can see, it moved down 1 inch. Now inset 3, we want it to be -3/4. And click OK. And as you can see, it moved it to the front. And you see I'm putting minus here because it moves it forward and down or up. If I just clicked on 3/4, it would put the front of this right there, or actually 0. See, look, if I said 0 and lock, it moved it flush. So it needs to be -3/4 and enter. So now inset 5, we want it to be overhanging this deck by 3/4, I believe. So let's go back into SketchUp here. Yep, 3/4. So inset 5 -3/4 and lock. And that is very good. So go done, click on done, and there you have that one. Okay, and all that looks good. So I'm going to click on this stretcher, and you can see it didn't highlight. So evidently what happened was we selected a stretcher that was behind this one, which doesn't matter. So I'm going to click on adjust stretcher, and I'm going to go back into advanced, and I'm going to go through the same process. The only thing is that we're dealing with the right hand side now. So that stays the same. This changes to the bottom, and inset 3 is going to be to the deck and the front, and inset 5 we're not going to mess with. Inset 6, see, we're dealing with this side, so let's go with inset 6 and the deck, and we want it associated to the right. And okay, so now we're just going to lock U, and we're going to go -1 and lock, and -3/4 and lock, and -3/4 and lock. And as you can see, that did basically the same thing. And done. Okay, now we're dealing with the back side of our cabinet. One thing I'd like to point out right now is that these stretchers do have a front and a back and a left and a right. You can rotate these things but sometimes they don't want to. In the method that we're using, if I was to take this and I wanted this front to be facing that direction instead of this direction, when I try to use this stretcher, which we will be doing to create more stretchers, it won't behave properly, and I'll demonstrate that here in a minute. So I want to click on this one, and I'm going to adjust stretcher. Okay, evidently I didn't click something. I didn't click on it, so I'm going to click on it again. See that little blue circle that popped up? That let me know that I had selected it. So I'm going to click on advanced again, and we want all this the same. And this time, since we're dealing with the back, we want to select inset 4. So deck, and we want it to be on the back this time. And inset 5 is going to be on the deck and the left. So lock U, -1, and lock U, and inset 4, -3/4, and lock U, inset 5, -3/4, and lock U. And something didn't work there, did it? Let's see. Let's unlock U, go to advanced. Okay, I've clicked right here. It needs to be on the left, and okay. So inset 5, -3/4, and lock. There we go. And done. And last one here, just stretcher, advanced, inset 2 on the bottom, inset 4 on the deck and the back, and inset 6 on the deck and the right. So I'm going to lock U, -1, and lock U, and -3/4 on inset 4, and lock U, and -3/4 on inset 6, and lock U, and done. Now we just need to get our mid rails in here, but before we do that, we need to get our top and bottom rails, because we want our mid rails to move with those particular stretchers. In order to get our top and bottom rails between these styles here, you would think that you would be able to click on this one and add a stretcher, and it will bring up a dialog here that will allow you to add a stretcher and an up-down stretcher. But whenever you click OK, it's going to give you this error right here. The requested change resulted in an unworkable dimension for a front-back stretcher. Press OK to restore previous settings. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to put a front-back stretcher, in other words, from the front of this cabinet to the back of this cabinet. In this case, we have these two selected, so it's trying to go from the front of this stretcher here to the back of that stretcher right there, which it just won't do that. So what I'm going to do is we'll have a couple of options here. We could come in here and we could create our styles for our ends here, and our left and our right end, and then select the one on the left and the one on the right, or in this case here, and create a stretcher from the back of this one to the back of this one. But then if we do that, we have to put our offsets or our insets based on the fact that we want a 1/2 inch coming into this one. And what will happen is that later on, if we want to change this style, for example, from 2 1/4 to 2 inches, we'll have to come in and adjust this inset. So, and that's perfectly fine if that's an easier route for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some helper stretchers to allow these top and bottom rails to adjust dynamically if this style width changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my bottom and my top here, and I'm going to add a stretcher, and I'm going to leave this at 2 1/4 right now, and I want a front back orientation, and I'm going to change my material to a material I have set up called dummy material do not cut. Okay, this is just letting us know that this is a helper stretcher, and in a few minutes we'll be actually changing that to a phantom part, so it won't show up on the actual cut list, and it won't show up in custom layout or render view when we do a presentation. I'm going to click OK, and as you can see, it put our stretcher in here. Now this is a 32nd of an inch thick, and what I want to do is I want to associate this side, which is actually the left, to be flush with this side here of this stretcher. Okay, in other words, it's going to be setting in a 32nd of an inch. Now I'm going to click on this thing, and I'm going to show you a couple of quirks, stuff that you need to look out for when you're dealing with these stretchers. And I don't know if these are bugs or the fact that we're trying to do something here that these guys didn't anticipate being done. But I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to click adjust stretcher, and I'm going to go to advanced, and I'm going to keep this one just like it is. I'm going to change this one to the bottom, and inset 3 I'm going to have on the, we need to be on this stretcher right here. So if you watch when I move this, you see the different ones highlight in blue, and I'm wanting this stretcher right here. Okay, and I want it on the front. And inset 4, I want to be on the exact same stretcher, and I want it to be on the back. Now the ideal situation would be to use inset 6 here and tell it to be set to 0. But what I found out is that if I do that, it will set it at 0, but when I change the width of this stretcher here, it just will not behave properly. And I'll show you that in hopes that maybe some of the guys from eCabinets programming see this and can determine whether or not I'm just trying to do something that they didn't plan on or what. But okay, so I got it set to this up down stretcher, and to the left I need it to the right because I want it on the right side of this stretcher. If I click OK, and we lock this to 0 and set 1, go -2 here and lock, and put that at 0 and lock, and this one at 0 and lock, and you can see it went from 2 1/4 to 3/4, which is great. That's what we want. Now if I change this to 0 and lock, you can see that it worked. Something's going on here. I've got -2. That needs to be -1 and enter. And if I go done, you can see, if I zoom in here, that this is actually positioned where we want it. You can see that it is inside. Get this right here now. It's actually inside that particular stretcher right there by 1/32, and that's what we want. But if I click on this stretcher here and I go to construction settings and I go from 2 1/4 to 2 inches and hit enter and OK, watch what happens. See, it did not move. Okay, now if I come in here and I'm like, what's going on, and adjust stretcher, and I can see here that it actually moved to 1/4 of an inch, which it should have stayed locked at 0, but it didn't. Now watch what happens when I move it. See, it moved it back. So something's going on here, but it just isn't behaving for us. So if I click on this again and I go to construction settings and change it to 2 1/4 and enter and OK, you can see it stayed right where it was at. If I hide this and hit escape to deselect it, go to adjust stretcher, you can see it went right back to 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. Let me unlock it. Change this inset or part association here to none, and I'm going to work with inset 5. Right there, and I do want this one to be on the right hand side, so I'm going to leave that checked and I'm going to go OK. Now I'm going to change this to -1/32 and lock it. Now it's flush, and it will resize properly now. Click done and come in here and construction settings, change it to 2 and OK. You can see it move. Let's see. Let's change it back to 2 1/4. Enter and OK. So we got it moving with our stretcher there, but it's not positioned exactly where I want it. What I want is I want this rail here that we're going to be putting in, our top and bottom rail. I want it to be inset into this by 1/2 inch, and that 1/2 inch is the groove that my raised panel cutter or my rail and style cutter is going to take. In other words, this top and bottom rail needs to be oversized by 1/2 inch on each side. So I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to hit my escape key, and I'm going to click on you, and I'm going to go adjust stretcher. Now we're at -1/32. I'm going to use some math here. I'm going to say I want 1/32 plus 1/2, hit enter, and it's saying 17/32, so I need to go 17:30 seconds and enter and done. Now that's position where I want it. Now I need the one for this side, and it's going to behave totally different. It's actually going to behave the way we want it to. So I'm going to add a stretcher, 2 1/4. I'm on the front back orientation, and dummy material, do not cut, and OK. And I'm going to adjust this one and go to advanced, change this to the bottom, and I want to be on this stretcher here, right there, and I want to be on the front, and this one I want to be on the same stretcher and the back of it. Now doing by experimenting with this thing, I found out that if I tried to do the same thing that I did on this one, it's not going to behave like this one did. It's going to do the same thing that it did on the first demonstration I done on this one. So this time on this side we're going to use our inset 5 and up down stretcher. I believe I'm right here, and we want this one on the left. OK and OK. So don't ask me why this is happening like this. I don't know if this is a bug, or like I said, we may be doing something that they never even planned on being done here. I'll go -1 and lock it. I've already locked inset 1. Inset 3 I want to be 0 and lock, and inset 4 0 and lock, and this time inset 5 should be -1/2 and lock. Nope, it should be 1/2 and lock and enter. Okay, now if we go back to done here, get back in our main area for the stretcher editor and see if this one is behaving for us. I'm going to go adjust stretcher. Nope, I don't want to adjust stretcher. I want to change the width of this, and I'm going to highlight it and go to construction settings and change this to 2 and enter and OK. So you can see that moved, so that's working, and change it back to 2 1/4 and enter and OK. There we go. So what I want to do now, before I go any further, is take this back to main and save this thing, just in case for whatever reason you screw something up or something crashes. We've got this saved. So I'm going to go back to main, and I want to save this. First, let's check make sure, since we've been resizing these, that these insets are behaving. I'm going to double click and dimension tool, zoom in a little more here, click on U, and we should have in the X direction 3/4. That is correct. So let's spin this thing around and check this side. We should have 3/4 of an inch here. So here to here is 3/4. So that's good. Alright, now let's save this thing. I want to save it. Click on my save icon, and I'm going to save it in eCab Tips Demos, and I'm going to name it RP trunk demo and save. And click done. Now that we have those two stretchers in there, we could put our top and bottom rail. So let's go into the stretcher editor and rotate this just a little bit. I want to hide this so I can get a hold of my dummy stretchers there. And hide selected, and I need to hit my escape key to make sure that those parts are deselected. I'll click on U and U and add a stretcher. And this is going to be the top stretcher. I want it 2 1/4. I want an up down orientation and 3/4 solid stop and OK. There's that one. So I'm going to adjust it, go to advanced, and we want the top and the bottom of the top. We're going to keep those just like they are, and inset 3, we want it to be associated to this stretcher here. So that one there and the front of that stretcher, and OK. So I'm going to change this to 0 and lock it. You know what? We got it associated to the top. Maybe we should associate it to something else. I didn't have to come back here, but let's go to advanced. Let's associate it to this top of this stretcher right here, to the top of it, and OK. Now we can just lock that at 0, and in set 3 we can lock it at 0, and done. Now we need to add our bottom rail. Hit escape key. Don't forget to hit escape key. Sometimes those will stay selected even though they are hidden. So I'm going to add another stretcher. This time I believe we have 4 1/4 inches. Yep. So 4 1/4 inches, and OK. Oh, I forgot to select up down stretcher. So let's do this again. Q and U, and I didn't hit escape key. Make sure you hit escape to deselect those stretchers. 4 1/4, the stretchers that were just hidden. This time I'm going to click up down orientation and OK. Alright, so now I'm going to go to adjust stretcher and advanced. This time we want inset 2, and we want it on this stretcher right here, and the bottom of that stretcher. Inset 3, same stretcher, and the front of that stretcher. Everything else stays just like it is. Change this to 0 and lock it, and lock that in 0, and done. So now we have our front back, or our top and bottom rail for those. Now I'm going to click on these again and hide these, and hit escape, click on U, and add a stretcher, 2 1/4. OK. Did the same thing again. U, hit escape key, U and U, and add a stretcher, up down orientation. We're doing the top rail on the back, so it's going to be 2 1/4, and adjust stretcher advanced. Okay, this time we want to have this rail, oops, right here. Okay, that one. So I'm going to select view. I'm going to hover over my parts until it highlights that rail, and I want it to be on the top. And this time we want inset 4. And if you remember, this is the front, so I want it on the back now. Okay, and okay. And I'm going to put 0 here and lock, and 0 there and lock, and done. Now we need a bottom one, so you and hide selected, hit escape, stretcher 4 1/4, and up down orientation, and okay. Go through the same process. Adjust the stretcher, go to advanced. This time we want inset 2, and we want it on this stretcher here again. Right there, and the bottom of that one. And inset 4, we want it to be on the same stretcher and the back. And okay. Inset 2 is 0 and lock. Inset 4 is 0 and lock. And go to done. So now we got front and back stretcher in there, and I'm going to go to main and save this. And keep everything like it is and save. It's telling me it already exists. I'm going to replace it. Done. And go back into stretcher editor, and now we are ready to partition editor. Now we are ready to, we're back in stretcher editor, and we're ready to work on our left and right ends. So now we need to put in our left and right ends, and I'm going to start by putting in our styles just like we did on the front here. So I'm going to click on the deck first, then the top, and let's see, if we go back into SketchUp here, we can look at our left and right ends right here. Pan over, zoom in. You can see that what we're wanting is an overall of 2 1/4 inches, and we're going to use a dado and a tongue to assemble this trunk. So this one is setting inside this one by 3/8 of an inch. So the width of this style, in order to get that 2 1/4, needs to be 1 7/8 inches. So we need to add a stretcher, 3/4 solid stock, and we want this time to be a front back orientation because we're going this way, not this way. And I'm going to change this to 1 7/8 inches, and okay. And there's that one. I'm going to add one more. And add a stretcher, 1 7/8 inches. back orientation, and OK. Now I'm going to click on you and adjust this stretcher. Now we want this inset, dealing with inset 5, inset 6, inset 4, inset 3, and it's basically the same as the front. I want the top at the bottom. I want it to hook to the top and the bottom of the top and the deck and the bottom of the deck. In set 3 we want to be attached to this stretcher right here, so let's get on that one, and we want it to be on the back. And let's see, now in set 5 this is going to behave for us by, let's do inset 5 and associate it to the deck and the left side of the deck. Click OK. And so inset 1 is 0, I'm going to lock it. Inset 2 is -1, lock it. Inset 3 needs to be -3/8 because we want it set into this stretcher about 3/8, and lock it. And inset 5 should be minus, we might need inset 6, -3/4 and enter. Let's see, and done. No, that looks good there. So that's what we're going to go with. Let's do the next one here. And add, oh, nope, don't want to add a stretcher, I want to adjust it. So we do advanced and change this to the bottom of the deck. This time we're going to be dealing with inset 4, and we want to be on this stretcher right here. That one right there. So inset 4 right there, and I want it to be on the front because this is the front of the stretcher. Now inset 5 we want to be on the deck and the left side of the deck, and OK. Lock inset 1 at 0, -1 for this one, and inset 4 we want it to be at -3/8, lock. OK. Maybe that's right. -3/4 and lock. Nope, that is not right. Let's click done and see what we got here. We got it wrong. Just stretcher. Go to advanced. Okay, inset 5 up down stretcher. Got it on the wrong side, the wrong stretcher, so let's get on the correct stretcher here. That one right there. I want it on the front, and OK. And -3/8 and enter, and done. Now, oh, that looks good. Let's add us 2 more stretchers in here for the right end. Oh, I don't want you, I want you, I want the deck. add a stretcher, 1 7/8, and we want front back orientation, and OK. There's that one. One more. Stretcher, 1 7/8. Front back orientation, and OK. There we go. Now let's edit this one. Didn't grab it. There it goes. Just stretcher, advanced. Now we're dealing with the right side, so we want to be on this stretcher here. First we need to change this to the bottom. We need to inset 3 to be on that stretcher right there in the back of that stretcher. And this time we want inset 6 on the deck and the right side. And OK. So we're going to set inset 1, lock it at 0. Inset 2 is -1. Inset 3 is -3/8. And inset 6 is -3/4. And lock. There's that one. Click on done. Maybe something don't look right. Let's see, what have we done here now? We've got an extra stretcher in here somehow. The same with this one. What is up with that? Okay. Oh, okay, I know what we're looking at. We're looking at this line. I was looking at that line right there thinking, hey, we had an extra stretcher in here, but we don't. It's that dummy stretcher we just put in there. So, restore all. Okay, now we need this one right here. And edit or adjust. Go to advanced. Now we're dealing with the back here, so change this one. We need inset 4, and we need that stretcher right there, and inset 6 on the deck and the right side of the deck, and OK. So I'm going to lock that at 0, change that to -1, and inset 4 at -3/8, and inset 6 at -3/4, and done. Now we need to go back to main, and we can verify that we have actually got 1 7/8 there, and 2 1/4 overall. Bring up our dimension tool here, click from here to there, which is 2 1/4, and if I hover over this, we see that we have 1 7/8 wide. So all that's good. Click on home here and save this cabinet. And save. And yes, I want to keep the changes, or override it rather. And done. Now we can go back into our stretcher editor, and we need to put in our left and right stretchers. And again, we probably need to use our top and bottom rails, so we need to probably use another dummy stretcher in here, just in case we want to resize these styles. So I'm going to click on the bottom and the top and add a stretcher, and find my dummy material here, and I want a front back orientation. Let's see, this time I want a left right orientation, and OK. Right, that's what I want. Okay, now edit or adjust this stretcher, go to advance, click on the bottom and the bottom, and inset. Get right here now. Inset 5. Let's do inset 5 and 6 first. Inset 5 is going to be on this stretcher right here. So right there. Okay, and I want it on the left side, and inset 6 I want to be on the same stretcher, and I want it to be on the right side. Okay, now inset 3 and inset 4, let's deal with because we were having problems before. Let's see what happens if we use inset 3 here. Let's see if it'll work for us this time. Inset 3, or up down stretcher, this stretcher right here, it's saying the back, and let's put it on the front, and OK. So we're going to lock U, we're going to go -1 and lock, and inset 3, let's put it at 0 and lock, and inset 5 at 0 and lock, inset 6 at 0 and lock. Okay, let's see what happens when I resize this. So done. Click on U and construction settings, and let's change this to, heck, let's leave it at 2 1/4 there and see what happens. It should move with it. If it don't, okay, it seems that it did. That one did actually behave like we wanted it to. Looks like. So let's change it back and to 1 7/8 and enter and OK. Alright, so that one's working. We're going to leave you like you are then. Let's create another one. And add a stretcher. I'm going to change this back to 2 1/4. And we want left right orientation and our dummy material, and OK. So now we need to adjust this one. So I'm going to adjust stretcher, go to advanced, and make all these changes. Let's see. The other one worked by changing these first, so let's go ahead and do these first. I don't know if that has anything at all to do with it, but that's what we're going to do. Okay, and we need that one to be on the left. Yeah, the left, and we want this one to be on the same stretcher and on the right. And in set 3 we want to be, no, we need in set 4 this time, so we want that set in. So in set 4, left right stretcher and the back, and OK. Because of the way this is positioned, this is the left, this is the right, this is the front, and that is the back. So let's go and lock that at 0, -1, and 0, and 0, and 0. And that looks like that worked pretty good. Yep, so let's go done. And let's resize this one to see what happens. So let's double check and make sure that it is actually up inside there. And yes, it is. So I'm going to click on View and right click, Construction Settings, and let's change this to 2 1/4, enter, and OK. Ah, see, that one didn't work. That's a bummer. One and 7/8 and OK. Hide this. So we're going to have to modify this. Need to hit escape to deselect that one that I just hid. Adjust stretcher. We need to change this to none and change this to our, get this thing turned back right here, left right stretcher right here, so, or up down stretcher, I'm sorry, right there. Okay, and the back of it, and OK, and we need this set at -1/32 and done. Let's double check you and see if you're moving right. Let's go 3 inches this time, enter, and OK. Okay, so that looks like it's working. That would be 1 7/8 and OK. And like I said, I don't know why we're having to do this, but at least we're learning how to manipulate these stretchers. And after all, this is our learning exercise. So now we need to move these in a 1/2 inch. So I don't know, I might be able to click on you. Nope. So I'm going to hide selected. I need to hit escape, and I'm going to adjust this stretcher. And we had inset 3 on this one, so we're going to go minus 1/2 and enter. Oh, a 1/2 inch, not minus a 1/2. And enter and done. And this one here, if we're lucky we can click on it, and we did. Nope, we clicked on that one. We don't want you. We want to click on our dummy stretcher here. And we're going to, don't forget to hit escape. Adjust stretcher, and we're at minus 1/32, so we need to add a 1/2 inch to that, so that would be 1/32 plus 1/2 and enter. Okay, 1/32 plus 1/2 and enter. So it's not letting us do nothing there, is it? 1/2 plus 1/32 and enter. So let's unlock you. Okay, it's got, okay, I got inset 4 checked. That's why. 1/32 plus 1/2 and enter. And let's say 27/32. Minus and enter and lock and done. I don't know if this is correct or not, but that's what we're going to use. And no, it is not. So let's go adjust stretcher. And let's go into advanced here. I wonder why that math didn't work. Let's see, 1/32 plus 1/2. I might have hit minus 17/32. I subtracted instead of add. And done. Now, I had inset 4 locked, so that's telling me that it's possible that this will not move correctly, so I'm going to double check that. Visibility, construction settings, let's go to 3 and enter and OK. If it don't work, it will be obvious. Okay, so that worked. And let's go back to inch and 7/8. And OK. And let's try this one just for good measure. 3, enter, and OK. And that seems to be working. Just put it back like it was. Inch and 7/8 and OK. Now we can add our top and bottom rails to our trunk here. So I'm going to hide you. and U, and construction settings. Nope, I don't want construction settings, I want to hide. Click U and U, and visibility, and hide selected. So now I want a stretcher from here to here, and add a stretcher. I want 2 1/4. I want an up down orientation, and OK. There's that one there, and we want to do another one just like it for the other side. Stretch it from there to there. Add a stretcher. Didn't hit escape, so don't forget to hit escape. Add a stretcher. 2 1/4. And up down orientation, and OK. Okay, so that will put it right there. The other one didn't for some reason, and it don't even look like it's 2 1/4 anyhow, so let's just delete you. And put another one in here. Stretcher. I forgot to hit escape again. 2 1/4. Up down orientation, and OK. Alright, so we got one top rail for that one, for this end, and one for the back end. So let's go ahead and get those in place. Click on U and adjust the stretcher. You see that little blue circle there going on. Alright, go to advanced. You want the top to be on the up down stretcher. I want it to be on the top of this stretcher right here. So let's click on U and go until we highlight that, and we want it on the top. And inset 3. I need to keep it just like it is. Okay, inset 5. We want it to be on that same stretcher and the left side of that stretcher. And OK. And we're going to change this to 0 and lock. And inset 3, inset 4, inset. We can put that at 0 and lock. And we should be good to go. Should be a 1/2 inch into that part on each side. Okay, it appears that it is. Let's hover over this and see how wide it is. It is 14 1/2 inches. So let's come in here and double check and make sure that we are correct here. 14 1/2. And that is good. So let's go back into here, and we're going to edit this one, adjust it, and go to advanced, and the top is going to be this time on the top of this stretcher right here on the end. I'll click on U, and oop, there it went right there, and the top of it. Inset 6 this time on the same stretcher and the right side, and OK. I'm going to put inset 1 at the 0 and lock, and inset 6 at 0, and lock. And done. So that one looks like it's working. It should be 14.5 also, and it is. Now let's put our bottom rails in here. So we'll click on U, and U, and hide. Selected. Click on U, and U. Now click on it and add a stretcher. I forgot to hit escape again. And add a stretcher. And this time we want it 4 1/4. And we want an up-down orientation, and if it does not position properly, and it did, okay. See, sometimes if you see these things go in the middle, they really shouldn't. If you're going starting, but in this case, they really should be right here. If they're not, then you're just as well off to delete them and do them again, because you might have problems. Now that being said, like when we did our top and bottom, it's always going to put it in the middle. If you had a left and right end, it would always put it in the middle. But in my experience, when we're dealing with adding to stretchers like this, it should position it right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put another one in here by hiding the selected parts. I'm going to click on U again, and U again, and forgot to hit escape. You have to hit escape to deselect those hidden items that you just hid. Add a stretcher, 4 1/4, and up down orientation, and OK. Okay, now I'm going to click on U and adjust. So now I want this one to be on the bottom. So I'm going to go to Advanced, and this time I want Inset 2, and I want it to be on this bottom, or this bottom of this style right here. So right there, and the bottom. And Inset 5, I need to be on the same one, and the left, and OK. Set you at 0 and lock, and 0 and lock, and done. Ooh, you see how that changed right there? Let's go to construction settings and change it back to 4 1/4. And hit escape and edit this one, or adjust this one I should say, and advanced. This time we want, hit escape here, maybe it won't jump around with me. We want this stretcher right here, one on the end. So Inset 2 right there, and the bottom of it. And now we need Inset 6 on the same one, and the right side of that, and OK. So Inset 2 is going to be 0 and lock, and Inset 6 is going to be 0 and lock, and done. So now we've got that all taken care of, we need to put our mid rails or our mid stiles in here, and that's going to be done basically the same way. Now, another thing too, the benefit from using these dummy stretchers, I have these set at a 1/2 inch. Let's say I bought another set of cutters, or I wanted to use another set of cutters for a different style and rail profile or something, and that inset or that cutter depth changed from a 1/2 inch to 3/8, then I would come back into Stretcher Editor here, and I would just change these insets from a 1/2 inch or whatever they are, just subtract 3/8 from that, or make them whatever depth there is, and these will automatically adjust. I wouldn't have to come to each one individually and adjust those insets, just these dummy stretchers here and these 2 dummy stretchers here, and everything will change accordingly. So that makes that rather dynamic, minimal clicks, and everything will change. So with that being said, let's go back into main and save this cabinet. And save it. And save. And yes, I want to replace it. And done. Now we need to return back into Stretcher Editor and start putting our mid rails in. Now that we're ready to put our mid stiles in, I said a while ago mid rails, but I meant mid stiles. We need to create some more dummy stretchers here for those mid stiles to attach to, just like we did these dummy stretchers for these rails. Here we need some that's going to be a 1/2 inch in from here and here, and a 1/2 inch in from here and here. So let's go ahead and get started doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this style here and this style here, and I'm going to add a stretcher, and I don't reckon it really matters if it's 4 1/4 or what it is. I do want it left to right orientation. In other words, I want it laying flat, just like this top and the deck is. And I'm going to select my dummy material and OK. And there that is. So I'm going to need one more. I'll click on you. And you. And add one more in there. Left right orientation. And OK. And hit escape. I'll click on you and adjust stretcher. I don't know why this right here is going on. It does that sometimes. It'll go away after a while. I'm going to go to advanced, and what I'm wanting is I'm wanting inset 1 to be associated to this stretcher right here. So I'm going to click on, let's see, yeah, inset 1, since we were having so much problems with dealing with the opposites there. Let's go ahead and go with inset 1, and I want it to be on that one right there, and I want it to be on the bottom. Okay, now inset 2 I'm not worried about. Inset 3 and 4 I'm not worried about. Inset 5 and 6 I want it to be, that one to be on the left side of that stretcher. So I'm going to go left, and this one I want to be on the same one, and I want it to be on the right. So let's go. Inset 1 needs to be minus 1/32, because that's how thick that is, and lock it. And inset 3, inset 4, inset 5 I want it at 0 and lock, and 0 and lock. Okay, that looks like it works. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and jump ahead here, and I believe that was 17/32. So let's do our math just to make sure. Plus 1/2 and enter. 17/32. Okay, that's good. So I just need to put a minus right here and enter. Alright, go done. Whoa, that one went crazy with us. Let's click on U and edit U, or adjust it. Excuse me, advanced. This time we want inset 2, okay? We want it to be on this one right here. Inset 2. That one right there. And want it on the top. Inset 5, same one. On the left. And this one on the right. And okay. So now inset 2, we want to be minus 17/32. 17/30 and lock, and inset 5 is 0 and lock, inset 6 is 0 and lock. And that looks good. And we can verify this by checking to make sure if we resize these, they're going to move properly. Construction settings, I'll leave that at 4 1/4. And it did not work. So what do you know about that? Two and 1/4 and enter, and okay. So see what we got to do with this one to get it to work. Just stretcher. Inset 1 is at 17/32. Inset 1 front back stretcher bottom. Okay, so let's unlock U and go into advanced, and let's try the way that we would want to do it to start with. And the bottom of that. And okay. And that's at a 1/2 inch, and let's lock it and go done. Okay, let's check you and see what happens. And okay, let's see if it'll work. It didn't even resize the stretcher for us. Construction settings. 4 and 1. Let's just go 3 inches and see. Enter and OK. Okay, that's working. So seems like these things work like they should sometimes, and sometimes they don't. And okay. I'll be willing to bet you that this one right here will work just like we got it. Maybe we can come up with a pattern here. Let's put it at 2 1/4. Yep, so that one's good. Four and 1/4 and okay. So now we need to create a dummy stretcher to go from this style here to that style there. So I'm going to click on U. I'm going to click on it now and U. And I'm going to add a stretcher. U and U and add a stretcher. And I'm going to go in a front back orientation and OK. Oop, wrong material. Delete item. Try it again. Add a stretcher. We want dummy material. Front back orientation. And we're going to edit U and go to advanced, and it seems like if we try this one, I guarantee you it seems like we got a 50-50 chance of it working. But we're going to do that one, and we're going to go to the bottom of that one and set 3 and 4 needs to be on the same stretcher here, and the front, that one, and this one needs to be on the same stretcher, and the back. So good to go there. And inset 2 needs to be -17. Let's see now. Should be minus a half. And lock. Nope. Should be 1/2. And enter. And inset 3 needs to be 0. And enter. And inset 4 needs to be 0 and lock. So let's see how that works. Let's change U and OK. Let's see if that moves properly. Okay, so that's working. 2 1/4. Okay, so the bottom one we got to do just the opposite, or it appears that way. That's how it's been working so far anyhow. There and there, and add a stretcher, and 2/4. Let's see, we want dummy material, front back orientation, and OK. Wow, see where it put that? I don't like that. Seems like every time that happens I have problems. Let's try it again. Add a stretcher. Dummy material, and OK. Now, that's right. See, there must be something going on with this stretcher editor here, because it shouldn't be doing odd things like that. But anyhow, like I said earlier, we're learning how to use this editor here, and hopefully this will help everyone in troubleshooting these things and what have you. Let's go ahead and adjust this stretcher and go to advance. We need to deal with inset 1 this time. Nope, inset 2. Excuse me. Inset 2. We need to be on that bottom stretcher right there and the top of it, and inset 3 and 4. We need to be on the same stretcher, and we need to be on the front, and this one here, the same one, and it needs to be on the back, and OK. Let's see, inset 2 should be minus 17:30 seconds, and lock. And it is. And inset 3 needs to be 0 and lock. And inset 4 needs to be 0 and lock. And let's see how we got on this one now. Good luck we've been having. It'll probably want to do the correct thing. So let's go to construction settings and change it to 2 1/4 and OK. And no, that's working. So change it back to 4 1/4. And OK. And like I said, you know, you don't have to use these dummy stretchers, but once you get them in there, the only thing you need to adjust, again, like I said, if you have to adjust these cutter heights and what have you, or the cutters, something don't look right here on this one. That one's wrong. It's 2 1/4. Escape here. Let's see what's going on with you now. Adjust stretcher. 1/4 inch. Inset 2. That needs to be 1/2. And enter. And done. Is that a typo on my part, or was that when I resized this? Click OK and see. Let's see what happens. Change it back. 2 1/4. Okay. Maybe it was just a typo. It appears that that's what it was. But like I said, you know, it takes a little while to put them in, but if you wanted to change your cutter style and it required a 3/8 or whatever, and you would just adjust the insets on these dummy stretchers and everything will change for you. In other words, you will change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 there insets and be done with it, instead of changing all these insets on everything, including your mid rails or mid styles. I keep calling them rails, but they're mid styles. Now I'm going to go back to main and save this. And I'm going to save it and save. And yes. And done. Then I need to go back to Stretcher Editor, where we can actually physically start putting in our mid styles now. Let's start with the front here. We're going to add our mid styles. We're going to use our dummy stretchers that we created, so I'm going to hide these. And I'm going to click on this one first and then this one. I forgot to hit escape to deselect the hidden geometry there. So I'm going to add a stretcher. I want it to be 2 1/4 and I want it to be left right orientation. I'm going to click OK. And there's that one. We're going to need 2 on this front here. I'll tell you what, let's work up these one at a time so we don't get confused. Let's restore all. Let's go into Sketchup here and let's see what our spacing is on our front. I believe it was 9 inches. So 9 inches from that style, from the left style, and this one is 9 inches from this style. What we don't want to do is we don't want to go, okay, 9 inches from here, and then this one is 9 inches from here. That will cause some issues when if we try to resize because the way that eCabinets resizes is in cabinet editor, and even in if you're in custom layout, you have an option of changing the size and adjusting both sides. But when you're in cabinet editor, it automatically adjusts both sides. It adjusts from the center. And what I found out that if you constrain these from each other, in other words, this one is 9 inches from here, and then the next one is 9 inches from here, it'll give you problems. So we need to go 9 inches from here to here and 9 inches from here to the other one. So let me click on this, and we're going to adjust stretcher and go to advanced, and in set 5 we want to be on the left front stretcher right there, and we want it to be on the right side. And let's see, since those, yeah, let's keep those just like they are there in set 3 and in set 4. Now in set 5 we just need to change that to 9 and lock, and done. So that stretcher right there should be 11 3/4, and we have 11 3/4 in SketchUp. Let's go back into here and let's put another stretcher in. I need to hide that. I'm going to click on, I need to hit escape, click on U and U, and add a stretcher. And we want left right orientation. Okay, and click on U and edit U, adjust it, go to advanced, and this time we want inset 6 to be on the right stretcher, right front stretcher right there, and we want it to be on the right side of that, and okay, and done. Oh, and then change my inset, my bad. Just stretcher. Inset 6, we want that to be at 9 and lock. Let's double check and make sure we got it right. Right side, and okay, and done. And this should be 11 1/4 also. 11 3/4. 11 3/4. And 11 3/4. So let me double check this because I didn't like how that was there. I don't know why that's there. I guess it's because this one's, I don't know. Ah, look at that. Minus 27. Advanced. Up down stretcher. For some reason it did not take. So let's come over here to right here. And okay. Now that looks right. So I want to go 9 inches and enter. And done. What the red flag was, it had that stretcher showing there. Whenever you're doing these advanced feature here, it shows what stretcher it's associated to, and it was showing that one there, which was odd looking to me, so I double checked it, and sure enough it was not correct. So let's put some more stretchers in here for our front and back. Hit escape and add a stretcher, 2 1/4, left right orientation. And what the heck, let's go ahead and add another one. I don't want that, I want to go to add stretcher. Add a stretcher. 2 1/4, left right, okay. Okay, now I'm going to click on new, adjust it, and go to advanced. Okay, now what we got to do is we want to set one top, right stretcher bottom. Yeah, inset 1 bottom, inset 2 top. Alright, now what we want here is we want inset 4. Okay, because we're going to the back. And we want it to be, I guess we could go on the top rail there, right there. And we want it to be on the back. We want it to be on the back side of that. Inset 5. We want it to be on the back style there, right there. That one. And we want it to be on the right side. That's the front. Let's see if that works. We might have to change that. So inset 1 is 0, inset 4 should be 0 and lock, and inset 5 should be 9 and lock. And that looks like it's good. And as you can see, these are all the stretchers that this is associated to. This one, and that one there. Now we got one more we need to do. And it's going to be done basically the same way. Inset 4 needs to be that one, and the back. And inset 6 this time needs to be on this style here. Right there. And to the left side of that one. And inset 4 is going to be 0 and lock. And inset 6 is going to be 9 and lock. And done. So there's those. They look like they're right. Let's go ahead and get our mid stretcher or mid style right here on these. So I'm going to hide you and hide you. And I'm going to hit escape. And I'm going to click on you and you. I'm going to add a stretcher. Okay, this time we want front back orientation. And okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put this one over here so that they're not on top of one another. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this one, or adjust it, and I'm going to go to advanced, and we need inset 1, inset 2, inset 3, and inset 4. Let's see, that might already be in the center, but let's double check and make sure where that one needs to go. Let's go ahead and get rid of our guides. Delete guides. And this one needs to be 5 5/8. So inset 3 needs to be 5 5/8. Okay, now inset 6 here. We don't see inset 6, but we're going to click on inset 6, and we want it to be on this end style right here. Oop, right there it is. And we want it to be on the right of that. Okay, now inset 3, we want to be on this same style. Okay, and we want it to be on the back. And okay, so inset 3, 5 5/8. I believe that's what that was. 5 5/8 is good. And I'm going to go ahead and just lock it, and inset 6, I want it on 0 and lock. And done. And now we get this again. But that's okay, it'll go away. Let's see, now we need to do our last one here. So we're going to hide you and hide you. And click on you. And add a stretcher. I forgot to hit escape again. Add a stretcher. 2 1/4, front back orientation. And okay. And that one is pretty much where we need it, I believe, but we're going to still need to put our constraints on it, or whatever you want to call it, that we're doing here. We go to advanced, inset 3, we need to be on this style right here. Oop, there it is. And we need to be on the back of it, and inset 5 this time is going to be on the same style and the left side of that style. And okay, and we're going to lock you and lock you, and we're done with it. Now we need to go back to main and save our changes. Then we can come back in and we can put our panels in here. I could come in here and put dummy stretchers just like we did on these, but to be honest with you, I don't think it would be worth the while, because if we adjust this cutter, we're still going to have to come in here and click on each one of these dummy stretchers to adjust them. So we're just as well off to click on the panels, fewer clicks that way. and adjust the insets on the panels. But first, let's go back to main and save our changes. You know, I haven't even tried to save in the stretcher editor. I don't know, I might be able to. Let's check that out and see. While we're experimenting, we might as well try it. Nope, got to go to main. So save our changes and save, and yes, and done. Now we can go back to stretcher editor, and we're ready to put some panels in. Now we're ready to put our panels in this trunk here. We need to hide this top rail here. We're going to start on the front, or actually the back of this thing. So we're going to hide these and hide selected, and we're going to click on our stretchers here and here, and we're going to add a stretcher. And as always, I forgot to hit escape. Maybe by the time I'm done doing this video, I will learn that I need to hit escape when I hide something. I'm going to keep this at 2 1/4, and I want a left-right orientation, and I want the same material here. And when it puts it in here, it should be in the center right there. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to adjust this stretcher, and I need to go to advanced, and I need this side right here of this stretcher associated to this side of this one, and this one here associated to that one. So I need inset 5 first, and I want to scroll down here till it highlights the one I want, and I need it on the right side. Now inset 6, I need it on that one right there and on the left. Now inset 3 right now is at none. Let's set it at this top stretcher here. Okay, and the front of that top stretcher. So inset 1 is at the bottom of that dummy stretcher, inset 2 is at the top of that dummy stretcher. Now if I take inset 5, okay, I need it inset by 1/2 inch less my panel expansion, which I'm going to set at 8. So I need to let it inset at -3/8 and hit enter. And inset 6 needs to be -3/8. Sorry about that, I should have locked it. Okay, and -3/8 and lock it. And as you can see, it resized just fine. Now inset 1 is at the very bottom here, so that's a 1/2 inch, or I'm sorry, inset 1 is on this dummy stretcher here, which is a 1/2 inch. I need to change it to be 1/8 because I want it to be 1/8 less, and lock that. You saw it move down, and inset 2 needs to be 1/8 also, and lock that. Okay, so what I should have here is a panel that is approximately 1/4 inch less than the height of the, or 1/8 inch, yeah, 1/4 inch less than the height of this, and 3/8 bigger than this opening. So if I click on done, when it gets done regenerating here, if I click on this and I hover over it, it will give me the size of this panel. Actually, I don't even have to click on it, just hover over it, and I've got 9 3/4 wide by 11.5 high. So let's go into SketchUp here and verify if we got that correct. So I need to be 3/8 in this way and 3/8 in this way, 3/8 this way, and 3/8 this way. And let's check our measurements here. So I've got 11.5 by 9 3/4. This measures 11.5 by, or 9 3/4 by 11.5, and that is exactly what we want. But what I have done here, and I don't guess this is a problem, but it could be, because when we start putting our stretchers in for the back here, it's going to be embedded in one of these panels here. So let's just adjust this, and let's change the insets here. Let's change inset 3 right here to this back stretcher. Okay, and we want it to be on the front. If we're dealing with the inset 3, I'll tell you what, let's change this to none. And let's change inset 4 to that one, and the actual front, the actual back of it. So that's the front and that's the back behind there. Okay, and inset 4, let's set it at 0 and lock it, and it moved it back. So there's that one. I need to make some more adjustments here. You don't want it necessarily associated to this one and this one. You want it associated to that one and that one, the left and the right. So let's go back to advanced, and I'm going to keep that one like it is. Inset 5, we want to be on this back stretcher here. Right there. Okay, and inset 6, we want it to be on the back stretcher back there. Right there. And okay. Something is not jiving here. I got the wrong one. Let me rotate this. Get it right here now. Okay, we need to be on that stretcher right there. That one. And okay. All these stay the same, and we're done. Now we need to do the same thing for our middle one here. We need to hide these. Click hit escape and click on U and add a stretcher. And we want left right orientation and OK. Go U and adjust it. Get to advance. I'm going to keep these just like they are. We need to go inset 4. First, let's do this. Let's rotate this thing where we can see it a little better. Okay, inset 4. I want to be on one of these here. So let's just pick on the first one it hits on. That one there. It's actually the second, but let's put it on that one. And inset 5. I want to be on that one again. And inset 6. Let's see, that's on the right, and that's what we want. Inset 4, we need to change that to the back. Inset 4. It's jumping, it's changing them around for me for some reason. I want it to be on the back because that's the front. Okay, inset 6. We want to be on the next one there. And we want it to be on the left side. And okay. Alright, there's our two stretchers. And let's say inset 1, we want it to be 1/8 of an inch. And lock. And inset 2, 1/8 and lock it. Inset 4, we want it at 0 and locked. And inset 5, we want it to be minus 3/8, so it goes into those 3/8 of an inch and minus 3/8 and lock. And done. And we're going to repeat this for the third one there. Hide. Click on escape. Hit escape and click on U and U. And add a stretcher. Adjust it. Advanced. Inset 4. We want to be, hit escape here. On either this one or this one, it doesn't really matter. Actually, we want it on that one, so right there, and we want it on the back. Set 5, we want on that one there, and we want it on the right side. That one. And set 6. We want to be on our style there, and we want it on the left. And OK. Now we go inset 1, 1/8 to make it an 1/8 inch smaller. Inset 2, 1/8 to make it an 1/8 inch smaller. Inset 4, we're going to put it at 0 and lock. And inset 5 at minus 3/8 to go in by 3/8 and set 6 minus 3/8 and lock it, and done. Alright, so we got our back ones done. If we hover over them, they should be 11 3/4 by 9, or 11.5 by 9 3/4, 11 9 3/4 by 11.5, 9 3/4 by 11.5, and that is 11.5 by 9 3/4. So we're in good shape there. Let's do the front. And this time I think I'm just going to put 3 of them in here. Make sure to hit escape and add a stretcher and left right orientation and OK. View and hide selected. Escape. Come on now. And add a stretcher and OK. One more. Oh Lord. Don't crash on me now. So now we got that going on again. I'm going to click on view and hide selected and add a stretcher. And as usual, I forgot to click on escape. Add a stretcher and OK. Now let's go ahead and get this one, and then we'll get that one, and the middle one will be left. So I'm going to go adjust stretcher and advanced and rotate this thing where I can see it. Inset 1, inset 2. This time we're dealing with inset 3, and I want it to be on that one right there, and the front on that one, and inset 5 will be on the same one, and the right side and inset 6 to be on that first middle stretcher right there and on the left side of it, and go through the same process. 1/8 and lock, 1/8 and lock, and 0 and lock, and minus 3/8 and lock, and minus 3/8 and lock, and done. And this one, Just stretcher, advanced, inset 3. We want to be on maybe this one here. And the front, inset 5. We want to be on same one. And the right side and inset 6, we want to be on our very last style here, right there. And the left side, and OK. Minus 1/8 and lock. Nope, should be 1/8. And then minus 1/8. No, 1/8. That needs to be 1/8. And inset 3 is 0 and lock. Inset 5 is minus 3/8. Lock it. Minus 3/8 and lock it. And done. So we should be 11.5 by 9 3/4. So let's go to this one and adjust that one. Inset 3. Split it. Where are you at now? Right? Nope. That might be right, but let me rotate this where we can see. I want to be on this one right here. Dun, dun, dun. Oop, right there. We need to be on the front. Inset 5, we want to be on that same one. On the right side, and inset 6 on the opposite one. Right there, on the left. And go inset 3 is, let's see, this would be 1/8. Lock it. And 1/8. And lock it. And we're just going to lock that at 0. And this one here, we want to be minus 3/8. Lock. Minus 3/8 and lock. And done. Okay, it should be 9 3/4 by 11.5. Now we're ready to put our stretchers in for our end panels. I'll hide you. And hit escape and click on you and you and add a stretcher. It's going to try to put it in the middle there, so I'm going to change the width of this to something like let's go 5 inches, and we want a front back orientation, and OK. And the reason I put it at 5 inches is so that we won't select the wrong one there. So now we know which one it is. If I'd have made it 2 1/4, we might have got a hold of the wrong one. So I'm going to select you, and I'm going to select adjust stretcher, and go to advance and rotate this thing around, because we're going to work on this side first, right here, and we want inset 6 first, just for the heck of it. Inset 6, we want to be on that middle. Actually, let's put it on the left style, because you might want to delete that at some point. You might want to get rid of that mid style right there. So let's put it right there, and that's the left and that's the right, so we need this one on the right. Inset 3, we want to be on that style too, and we want it to be on the back. And inset 4, we want to be on that mid style right there. We want it to be on the front, because there's the front of that one. And let's click OK. We want all this the same. 1/8 lock, 1/8 lock it. Okay, inset 6 here. We want it to be at 0 and lock it. So it moved it right there. Inset 3, we want to be -3/8 and lock it. And inset 4, we want to be -3/8 and lock it. So there's that panel. Let it get done rendering. Excuse me. Now, last one for that side. Remember to hit escape and add a stretcher. Let's go ahead and just make it 5 inches and OK. Oh, didn't change my orientation. Now we get to let it render and delete it and redo it. Delete item, and yes, I'm sure. So now we get to hide these again. Click on hit escape, click on U and U. And add a stretcher, and we want front back orientation, and we want it 5 inches so we can get a hold of it. The more parts we put in here, the longer it takes to regenerate. I'm sorry for the phone ringing, but it'll quit in a second. So now we need to adjust this stretcher. So I'm going to go to advanced, and I reckon I need to answer that phone, so I'm going to pause this, I believe. No, I don't know who that is, so we're just going to have to let it ring. There it goes. Sorry about that, guys. Where were we? Setting up our association. So inset 3, inset 4, inset 5, inset 6. Inset 6 we want to be on our middle right there. Well, actually, we need it on our far right side there, just in case we ever delete. Of course, it wouldn't matter, we'd have to get rid of one of these anyhow. Start over. Well, it's down here somewhere. We only got like 75 stretchers. Right there it is. And we want it on the right side. And then we got to deal with inset 3. We want it on the middle one there, right there, and we want it on the back side, which is correct. That's what it is. So inset 4, we got to have it on that far left or far right stretcher right there on the let's see, we want it on the front. Inset 4 needs to be right there, so it's not letting me put it on the back. Let's put it on the front and see what happens. No, that look on the front. Okay, what are you on? You ain't even on the right one for some reason. Needs to be on the back, and then this one needs to be on the front. And inset 5 is nothing. Well, for some reason it moved it. Where are you at? Right there. And on the front. And okay. So, inset 1 is 1/8. And lock. And inset 2 is 1/8 and lock. And inset 3 is minus 3/8. Lock it. And minus 3/8 and lock it. And then inset 6 is going to be 0 and lock. And done. Now, double check these and make sure they're correct. That measures 6 3/8 by 11 1/2. So if I zoom out here and come over 3/8 and 3/8 and measure 6 3/8, so we're good to go. Let's go ahead and put our last two in, and we'll be done putting all our stretchers in, except for our bands for our moldings and our band around the top. Remember to hit escape and add the stretcher. Let's go ahead and make this 5 inches again. Now this time we want front back orientation. And OK. There we go. Alright, now we're going to edit that one. Or adjust it, I should say. And go to Advance. Spin this thing around. And let's go from this side first. Okay, so I want that one and that one. So inset 3 is going to be on that middle stretcher right there. And where is it at? Evidently that's it right there. Yep. Okay, so I want it on that one, and I want it on the back, and inset 4 is going to be on that one right there and the front of it. So now we're dealing with inset 5, and I want it to be on that right style there and the left side, and OK. Now we need to change these to 1/8 and lock. 1/8 and lock. And minus 3/8 and lock. And minus 3/8 and lock it. And inset 5 is at 0 and lock it, and done. Okay, one more guys and we'll be done with this part. 6 3/8, and that's good. Click on, hit escape and click on U. Not U, but U. And U. And add a stretcher. 2 1/4. Front back orientation. Let's make this 5 inches so we can get it. We are almost there. Now, adjust the stretcher. Go to Advance and rotate it around where we can see. And inset 3 is going to be on that center one. Right there. And this time we want it on the front. No, I'm sorry. Inset 3 is on, needs to be on this outside stretcher right there. It needs to be on the back of it. Inset 4 needs to be on the middle one. That one there. And the front of it. And inset 5 can be on this outside one right here and on the left side of that. And OK. So now we go 1/8 again, lock, 1/8 and lock. Then we can go minus 3/8 and minus 3/8 and lock it. Inset 5, we're just going to lock it at 0 and done. Now, we go home here and look at this thing. We've got our panels in, we got our stretchers in. So we need to go back to main and save our cabinet, or our trunk in this case. I could probably close a lot of these windows I got down here open and it will go a lot quicker, but that is it. So let's go ahead and save it. Right here, save, and save. And yes. And done. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. I know it's an awful long video, and I will be adding some links at the top of the screen up here somewhere for the different chapters. I broke it down in all the different chapters for this video, so you can click on, for example, chapter 1 and go through it, and when you watch the video again, if you want to go to chapter 2, you can click on chapter 2. That'll be either up here at the top somewhere or maybe even down here at the bottom. But before I post it or release it to YouTube, I will have those set up to help you migrate through this long video. So thank you for watching, and as always, please subscribe to my channel and give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. Post your comments and let me know what you think. Thank you again for watching, and have a good day.